our intro with a new version of our song.
And yeah, well, we're late, but all right.
We're not like 5 minutes.
Go, go. Darwin already said it was bedtime, man.
Hey yo, hey ya. Hey yo, hey ya. Hey yo, yo, hey. Grandfather, Great Spirit, I send my voice your way, your way, your way, your way, oh, hi-ya. Your way, oh, hi-ya. Yo, oh, hey ya, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, yo, way. In the moon of popping trees, when I was only 9, the voices called me from the clouds. The thunder spoke my name. 2 men of lightning slanted down, spears flashing in their hands. Hurry, child, your grandfathers wait in the rainbow's flaming land. 6 grandfathers, powers of the world, sacred hoop, the flowering tree. Make the nation live free. Make the nation live again. Live again. The vision true, the people's prayer. Their horse turned and they to the 4 quarters of the sky. 12 black horses thundering west where the storm clouds lie. White geese north with blizzard mane. Sorrel east like morning light. Buckskin south with horns of power. All the horses dance that night. 6 grandfathers, powers of the world, sacred root, the flowering tree. Make the nation live free. They gave the cup of living water, the bow that turns to spear. I rode the storm and struck the blue man, drowned and fear disappeared. Rain fell sweet, the grasses rose, holy trees stood tall and green. In the center of the nation's hoop, the people's heart is seen. Red road good, black road hard. Horror says I walk along, ghosts of grandfathers trail behind like morning mist and smoke. 100 shall be sacred, 100 shall be flame. The trees still bloom, the circle holds, dreamers down the grandfathers. Hear me now, west and north, east and south, sky and mother resound. With visible face, I am appealing, greening like the pleasantness I made. Your way, your way, your way, your way, your way, yeah, your way, your way. Hedges through my love, grandfather, great spirit, I have seen, and I remember the pipe is lit, the circle lit, silence is broken, the old eye is falling. 6 grandfathers, powers of the world, sacred hoop, the flowering tree. Make the nation live free. 6 grandfathers, powers of the world, 6 grandfathers, powers of the world, sacred hoop, the flowering tree. Make the nation live free. Make the nation live free. Make the nation live free.
Well, it is Saturday evening, May 23rd, 2027. How are you, planet Earth? Welcome to the Roundtable Chronicles. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We see you in the chat. I'll hop over there in a second. Tell us how the audio is, if you don't mind, as we pop around the horn and welcome the crew to the Roundtable. We'll start with Ricardo, and then you can hand it off to the boys, Rickett and Vincent. How's it going, dude? Ricardo has safely arrived on the other side of the ocean for a short visit.
You're on mute.
And he's in Portugal on mute.
Yes. So formal protest because it's the 24th, not the 23rd. So
It is. What is it? 2 a.m. Right? Or what?
no, it's 1:10.
1. Okay. All right.
1:10. Apart from that, all is well. I just had to move into the office because I couldn't do it from my house today, and so I had to come into the office. It's the same place but different house, so different setting today.
I dig the shelves, the bookshelves, and I like the old camera back there.
Yeah, it's my father's office. So
Oh, really? Well, that's awesome, dude.
yeah. And with that, I pass the words to Rick. How are you today, Rick?
Greetings, Earthlings. I am well. I'm tired. I got up early, and I worked hard today. As I was doing yesterday, moving gravel by hand, I did more of that today. So,
Rick shagging.
okay, so, not yet, but
Working on it.
He's been out there shagging ass, as they say, laying gravel, from what we heard last night, and kind of dealing with the weather onslaught, the rain that everybody's seeing.
yeah, we're still looking at flooding, potential for more flooding. I'm just trying to not go anywhere right now. So, to get back to the comment, this will be a work vehicle as soon as we get the show back into new filming mode. That's the goal, at least.
Soon, I guess. So
Yes, actually, we're going up to Wisconsin for about 3 weeks. 4 weeks, I guess. And do some more filming up there. And Ricardo and I both have some assignments associated with that outing, but I'm not sure he realizes that yet.
no, I have no idea.
So, Vince, how have you been? I know you've been busy, right?
Hi. Yeah, it's been fun this week. I found ChatGPT and learned about how to use it, and transcribing his archaeological reports into visual images has been really interesting lately. And
Productive.
it can make images that are very accurate, and you can make scenes of what it would look like in any given situation. And also this week, the Ancient American magazine came out, and this magazine had a really neat article about Strange Kentucky and the artifact that Lee Pennington showed on the show when he came on a few months ago. So yeah, I really recommend everybody pick up the Ancient American magazine.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I got started. Well, that's how I got started in broadcast production and writing as part of this. But as far as pure interest, it preceded Asian American by a few years. Oh yeah.
But I guess just to give an example of what capabilities that AI has, this is a picture of from a list of objects that were made of meteorite found in Ohio. And each one of these, there was a description of as meteoric iron objects that had been excavated from mounds in Ohio. So I entered this list into the ChatGPT, and it developed the picture just within a few seconds of just receiving the list. And so, I mean, it has the ability to generate pretty amazing details.
Teacher, I have a question. How did they determine this is meteoric iron?
What? Sorry, what did you say?
How did they determine this is meteoric iron?
Oh, well, it was listed.
Determined meteoric iron because nobody could smell the iron? Ancient America, is that?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, Well, if they could make these objects out of meteors, then how could they have smelted? I mean, did they just carve these?
Could they have not melted iron if they could melt this stuff down? That's my point.
Yeah.
Or even anneal it for that matter.
And so they had double-bitted axes, all kinds of knives, and bear's jaw. One of them is a bear tooth that's embedded with meteoric iron. And there's a human ulna with meteoric iron banding around it. All these objects are just incredible. This is something that was published by Olaf Prüfer in the Ohio Hopewell Meteor Iron Objects article. And these are reported from Marietta and Circleville, Ohio. So, yeah, that's kind of the interesting capabilities that could show about AI.
Yeah, so I'm very intrigued by the capabilities. I mean, often I whatever, I've got my own opinions on AI for image producing and all of that stuff when it comes to historical stuff, the way it's often presented and falsely, as like I know you don't do, Vince, and what I saw there was not like what I would expect, usually you see with the stuff. What I am excited to get into and why I appreciate that lesson, that example there, Vince, is I don't know if Rick, have we decided, we kind of got tech issues before we started, which one of you guys wants to go first with what you have to present?
It's entirely up to you, Ben.
Because Vincent, I think we're going to I would like to look at, and if you want to mention the email that you, Ricardo and I and Rick saw earlier, that's perfectly okay. But also, I'm definitely interested in any of these slides you've been sending to me, bro, on any of the subjects. I know you did some on Pisgah and other things.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks. I want to start out with this one. This is about the Wells Mound, which is Pisgah. I presented about this a while ago, and this in particular is the Garden Creek site and the skull that was found that was photographed by me and Valentine, included in the Pisgah photo album. So this skull photo was sent over for analysis, and this particular skull had been found. It had been reported from Garden Creek site. It was handwritten Wells Mound underneath it. So after doing some research here, UNC catalog said there was a skull found in the mound, in mound number 1, and there were also things associated with bullets in the mound. A musket ball, a lead bullet, a lead ball. And so the skull looked like it had been damaged with a bullet because it was cracked and it had a hole in the side of it. The whole front of the skull was missing, essentially the nose, nasal cavity, and a lot of post-mortem damage. So the DeSoto Chronicles, we looked at and found out that there was a description of when DeSoto came through, he described sepulchre, chest, ancestor statues, pearl-adorned objects, weapons, shields, and he shot an arbicus. In the journal, he said he shot a gun, which is called an arbicus, through the wall or through one of these sepulchre chests and possibly damaged the skeletons. And the skeletal remain of the skull found in the mound correlates to that. So, and all these other things that we'll see. But what we did is we looked at the examination of the skull and...
Vince, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
You really don't have any headphones?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's that fan. It's just... maybe your daughters have some?
I'll have to get some headphones, but I don't have any right now.
Okay. So
Go get your daughters, yeah, and I think it's echo cancellation too, Vince. It's not just fan. When you don't have headphones, the Riverside has to do a trick called echo cancellation so that I'm not hearing my voice. Right, and it also increases this noise that we're getting. So it's okay, man. But yeah, since he stopped to check, That's what it is. So
Okay.
So
So
the email to Dr. Weiss was to investigate whether or not the skull at Garden Creek and Mount Pisgah was associated with DeSoto, because DeSoto, as you had put it, took his harquebus and just bam, purportedly, according to the chronicles, blew a hole in the graves of the ancestors.
right, sacrilegious and everything, and like but this is a map of the mounds at Garden Creek. There's 1, 3, 5, and number 2 over here. These are the current numbers: 31 HW 1, 2, 3, and the mound 5. Also, there's off to the side. There's a place called Huggy Bear Hill area over here. So mound 5 is the one that is kind of disputed or questioned. Like, we weren't sure where that is, because the others were kind of well depicted, and number 2, it's not on the high map like this, but based on all the information, this is the configuration that it looks like that they were in. So mound 1 was a Twin Earth Lodge mound, and mound 2, called previously Work Mound, this is Burnett's Hill. This is possibly the same as Huggy Bear Hill, since this area is called Huggy Bear Hill, and the road actually now currently has the name Huggy Bear Hill, where it goes to that mound. And this is near the high school in Canton, North Carolina. So then this photo shows the artifacts that were found in the crew. Here's the catalog of the album from Valentine, showing the excavation crew. And they had found petroglyphs. They found, they started out in this field, walking in the field, and they had a crew of around 35 people digging up these mounds. So over here, these are some examples of the things that were reported. There were blue sapphires. There were emeralds. There was wampum, 28 wampum belt beads. The historical context is the Soto expedition passed through the area, and the chronicler Louis de Moscoso wrote that Rangel, their leader, entered the temple, and he said of those idolatrous people, and found bodies of men tied on a barbacoa covered in pearls, and discovered a green and very good emerald made of glass. They said Rangel entered the temple of the idolatrous people while having they unwrapped these internments, and they found some more bodies tied on the barbacoa, and then they started opening them, and they found they were wrapped with pearls, and they brought them out, and then Rangel, their leader, said the green thing that looked like a very good emerald, he was very delighted. So back in 1521, this is actually what happened, and these are some of the objects that were found in the Garden Creek Mound. They found metal objects, metal blades. They found shell beads, 28 wampum belts, 24 bead anklets, and gorgets. And then in the DeSoto Chronicles, it also describes Byzantine type iron axes, glass beads, and rosaries with crosses. So there's Christian evidence of Christians that they had rosaries with crosses in the mound as well. And so next slide is the skull itself. There were 5 pictures taken of the skull, showing the anterior, posterior view, and this is 3 of those that they said that these were photographs of the Valentine skull from the Cook studio. They basically took these and made an album of them, and when Rick and I were at the museum, we took pictures of the album, and that's where these came from. So the skull, we believe, was put back in the mound, and later on it was found and reported in the catalog of University of North Carolina. as mound 1, but now they're saying mound 5. The AI decided that this is from mound 5 because they couldn't be certain where Wells Mound was. So even though it's in the Mount Pisgah book, it said it was signed Wells Mound. And there's some dispute about where that's at. But the skull was important because it links the archival evidence, the 31 HW1, Mound 1, and these other things with the bullets that were in the mound. Musket balls, lead balls, the shell beads and wampum belts, all these things. The wampum belts have currently been repatriated officially, and they won't allow anyone to study them. So these are available in their catalog to look at the description, but they don't allow any pictures of these, and they won't allow any researchers to look at them. And this is an important picture here because it correlates with Seop Mound in Ohio. There's a depiction. There's another pipe from Seop Mound that matches the effigy pipe from Mount Pisgah. And that Seop Mound in Ohio is dated to around 200 AD. So there is a strong correlation, matching symbolism there. And so this is kind of a depiction of what it would look like in Kofi when they found this temple filled with sepulchre chests, statues of the leaders, and pearls and arms. They had weapons and bows and arrows all over the walls. The DeSoto Chronicles actually describes 60,000 bows and arrows that were in this mound, and as well as spears, axes, all kinds of things. So it's just incredible. This mound would have been filled with pearls. There were descriptions of the blue and green jewels as well, and the historical context is just amazing because it really shows the importance of this site. And then, so this is the chat description of what was found from the skull. So they said this is post-mortem damage, and this does not prove that there was not perimortem or before death trauma, but the majority, and the evidence shows that the skull was damaged after death. And the next part is about Wells Mound and how these mounds were kind of lumped together. The NAGPRA inventory, this mound was claimed by NAGPRA in 1996, and the Garden Creek Mound 1 was claimed, and Wells Mound was then recorded as HW5, the Wells Mound skull, but there's evidence that it relates to Mound 1. And so the other part is the DeSoto Chronicles having a real connection here, because they described shooting in the mound, and there were 3 bullets found in the mound, and so that's a real event that this happened, and it's something that matches the evidence here. But they can't say for sure because they haven't investigated the skull, like for lead residue or connected it directly to the bullet.
Yeah, I think you have enough for sure contextual evidence so far, Vincent, for this to be a very, very strong case, strong enough to be looked at. And if I read the email from Dr. Weiss correctly, that it is, she wouldn't go either way, it seems like, confirmed, because you can't really, but it does seem consistent with post-mortem damage. And looking at the pictures, I mean, the skull's kind of shattered, so it does seem to be perhaps some post-mortem damage. If you're also finding lead bullets, and you also have firsthand accounts from the people that were there in the Chronicles, I think you have enough contextual evidence to have a serious look at it. And bravo, as always, Vince, for the work you've been doing and trying to get attention to this and get it looked at. Yeah, this is brilliant. Yeah.
As
one
usual.
observation.
Excellent work.
Thank you.
The sepulchres, as you called them, they're basically just ossuary boxes, correct? They just cleaned the bones, put them in a box, and held on to them.
Right, ossuary or coffins. I mean, they had pictures of the wooden coffins or ossuaries that were found there.
There were,
when,
go ahead, Rick.
so when it was shot, the box was shot, the skull had been laying on its side, almost certainly, and the shot entered from the back, and the exit wound destroyed the facial construction. Because I think there's a hole in the back.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the skull has a hole in the back, and it's missing the whole front of the skull, like the nasal area. It also has battering on the brow of the skull, and I mean, so it was kicked around a lot and
Okay, but
damaged.
we can also assume that these skeletons were in kind of basket coffins, right?
Yeah, that's right. Coffins.
Okay.
They had wooden
So-
coffins.
They're
that they-
described as wooden boxes. Yeah, and
So
and depending on the account, Vince, of this place, and Ricardo, keep going. Is there was a lot in this temple. I mean, there were some accounts. Again, if I know we're trying to correlate if this is the place they were talking about in the Chronicles, but man, there was a lot of stuff here, Vincent. Like rooms and rooms away from this one thing elsewhere. Go ahead, Ricardo. I'm sorry, man.
I was just going to say that if either this wooden box, although in this case, according to the photograph, and Vince can answer in a moment, I think some of them were in a basket-like cocoons, right? The bodies were like that. So if they turned them around against the wall of the temple, or the whatever the structure was, and they were practicing shooting on them. So if the bullet came from behind, it makes a small impact on the entry, but it smashes the whole face in the front. So I think that it's not necessarily from kicking the skeleton around, which might have happened, of course, but I think it's from the bullet that entered from the back and completely destroyed the face in the front, because we're talking about a body, so it's not a living person. We don't know how long that body has been there, so the tissues are much
It
more
was skull.
fragile.
It was a skull when it
Yeah,
when it
much
happened.
more, much more fragile than an actual body. So it would completely smash the front of the skull. At least that's my perception.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, Vincent, you're getting the kicking and the scuff marks from the fact that there was some mention in I don't know, one of the many chronicles of the actually kicking the skulls around, right? Like he shot
Yes.
it and they were literally they were desecrating. They were making fun of it, kicking it around.
Right, desecrating it and doing everything they could to destroy it. I mean, it clearly states that in DeSoto Chronicles. That's the first thing. And, you know, I could bring up some more here about the Mount Pisgah site and just show some really great pictures of what it was like there that I was able to put together this week.
But one of the big issues here, both in the Chronicles as well as in the archaeological records, there were Christian items in there when DeSoto arrived. Nobody talked about it.
Well, that's not relevant. That's just a misplaced artifact, as usual.
Yeah, right.
An anomaly.
If there were a Christian colony, a social, some kind of a society that practiced Christianity in the Americas when DeSoto got here, then he was supposed to leave them alone.
I'm just going to say, Vince, I'm muting you. Just unmute yourself each time you're going to speak, so we minimize the noise, okay? And regards to what Rick said, what I'm curious is, how back can we source the first rosaries and the first wooden crosses in that faction, and so in that fashion? So how old are those things, or how old can those things be? Do you have any idea, Rick?
Catholic rosaries go back to like the 7th century, 6th or 7th century.
Seventh century? Okay.
6th or 7th.
So it will
But
fit in.
it would fit in the timeline, yes. But there were also mentions of lead crosses and other materials. So, and this is in the DeSoto Chronicle. It makes it amazing to me that archaeology and history just kind of ignores all this. It's an important fact,
Yeah, but it doesn't fit the narrative, right?
correct?
So it's like the if I'm not mistaken, is Michael Cremo, Forbidden Archaeology. It's 1,000 pages of anomalies. Some of them I can look at them and say, well, probably this is really not a fact of old age, but some mix-up that happened here. But most of them, you do have to think something is amiss here. It doesn't fit at all, and it doesn't seem to be anomalous. It's there. It's well placed. It's undisturbed. It was found with all
What
the
I find,
things.
what I find even more anomalous is how bizarre archaeologists and historians will make up a story to explain it away every time.
So it wouldn't have been the Nords, would it, that brought Christianity over? Who would have? It would have been, I guess, the Welsh. Maybe is that one of your?
Well, early Romans, maybe I don't know, just Christians escaping Rome.
Right, right.
What is describing the Rue books? So the
A
bishops.
large pool of people that could have simply and easily made it over here by boat if they were in any way refugees or in any way just kind of had to be here or stuck. What would they have done? They would have made friends with the native population. They would have gotten in with them. They would have eventually bred in with them, but they would have taught them their ways about what was important to them, just as the natives did. And if the natives are anything like as reported in the DeSoto Chronicles, they would have heard those stories and they would have honored them as well. And just right there, what was that, 2 minutes? I described a plethora of scenarios as you laid out that could describe this. The reason they bury it is not because it's so hard to believe. It's really not, guys. I mean, I just described it, audience. It's very easy to have happened. The reason they don't want you to consider that extremely parsimonious explanation is because it sort of, as Rick said, it makes everything that happened from then on out fucking illegal, right? It should not have happened. The land was then at that point stolen, even according to the documents carried by the countries that claimed the right to the land.
Right, as well as the crimes against humanity. But we can, it's kind of a side issue.
And even if the natives didn't accept, just to before I continue, Vince, can you unmute yourself, or when I mute
Okay.
you can. Okay, I just wanted to know. Mute yourself. Control that. I was just going to say that even if the indigenous people didn't accept their beliefs, once they're dead and part of the community, they would bury them and put whatever they respected with them, right? They would have that care, right? Now, I just want to also say that, Jason, not all of the tribes were that peaceful, because we have that story of Arthur II, Marduk, which wasn't well received at all. They tied him to a tree and shot every bow that they have.
Oh, no doubt. Of the ones that were successful, I'm sure they were one out of. It all depended on where you landed, just like anything else. I just meant the reality of such receptive people was established in the DeSoto Chronicles, just as the reality of some non-receptive people. That's all.
But yeah, I wanted to show this slide about how the Mount Pisgah site was then subsequently accused of being frauds by the Smithsonian after they went to the site. Well, now we know that they need individual artifacts, and that the overall dismissal was not correct. They have a need to go ahead and do the testing on each artifact and determine whether it was individually modern or ancient. And so it describes the need for object by object testing.
Well, Vince, I believe that you tried once or 10 times. So how has been the reception to test those artifacts?
Yeah, it's been shut down. I mean, the internet really, we tried to test them, and well, this was the Smithsonian published
I'm
a letter.
pretty sure that they have a picture of Vince right next to my picture, and they both have bullseyes on them. Just saying.
Well, yeah, and it was interesting. The Smithsonian wrote a letter in 1963 that there was a major disagreement among the board members of the Mountain Museum about these artifacts, and they said we have a difference in opinion about the disposition of these artifacts. We think they're real, basically. And the Smithsonian said, well, you can't test them and you can't sell them. You just have to hold on to them and just believe what I say. Basically, they wouldn't let them do anything. And
So what was the rationale for they can't test them?
the rationale was these are known frauds, so they're just hold on to them as examples of frauds, and they just wouldn't let anybody test them. So they passed on the conclusion that was made back in 1883 by Charles Rao when he made this.
So going back to the meteoric iron, there are tests that can tell us whether that's accurate or not. There are tests.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And then so yeah, they won't allow testing. I mean, it's like they have a preconceived notion. All they do is pass that along as if it's a fact, and they have no data to back it up. And so it's truly hearsay.
And yet they call it science.
So I put this slideshow together about the Monk's Mound at Cahokia, and Monk's Mound has evidence of a lot of colored surfaces that were different colors. Everything shown here, this is kind of my depiction of what I think it would have looked like. A Thunderbird image on the mound with no grass growing. It probably was a lot more colorful than this, with possibly different images all over it on every single face of the mound. But this is kind of just a concept image of what I think it would have been like. And they used earth to make these colors, like literally clay. They would apply veneer on the mound in different areas and different thicknesses. And when the mound was excavated back in 2007, they found all these different thickness and layers of colors in all over the surface of the mound. It was literally 2 foot thick.
I disagree with that statement. They didn't find it. You did.
Right, I found them. That's right. I was there. I took the pictures of it. They just ripped it up with a backhoe. That's right. They weren't looking for anything, and they basically went at it with a backhoe and started tearing it apart. And I found that these colored surfaces were all over the surface of the mound like a veneer, and took pictures of them and cataloged them. And so this article talks about the need for realizing that the mound is sacred architecture. It's an archaic construction. This mound has colored earth veneers all over it, and the visual report argues that Monk's Mound should be interpreted not merely as an accumulated earthen platform, but as a deliberately engineered monument whose soils, clay, caps, sod blocks, loaded fills, zone fills, veneer, color, and surface sequencing carry technical, social, and symbolic meaning. The drawing, especially in Sherwood and Kidder's geological framework, shows the report treats the mound itself as an artifact. The constructed body whose materials and arrangement reveal planing, labor, organization, hydraulic knowledge, slope control, ceremonial renewal, and public visual meaning. So I'm going to show some just examples here. There's geoarchaeology. They had different colors. There's actually a layer called River La Havre. This was a 18th century French occupation on the mound. And
can you click that X so we have a full view of
sorry. Yeah. There we go.
Thank you.
Okay, on the third terrace of the mound, there was a dog burial, limonite marked activity, and that's important because it was dated to the Archaic period, and it was determined to meet the same size of archaic dogs from Paul Parlamy, who happened to be a specialist in dogs, canines, and studied them in the size of the dogs that were found in mounds.
And that was in Monkstown?
Yeah, that was on the top of Monk's Mound. But Paul
So
Parlamy studied
that
mounds.
changes a lot about what we thought the age of Monkstown was.
What?
I said that changes our conception of the age of Monkstown.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm getting at. The chronological timeline is totally wrong. That they believe Monk's Mound was built during the Mississippian occupation, but on the very top of the mound is where they found this archaic dog, and an archaeological surface is as old as the oldest item in that surface. So it's like the first footprint shows the dog was buried there, and it's an archaic dog. Therefore, the mound has to be at least as old as the dog. And there's no way an articulated skeleton could have been just put there later on after it had died. So it's proof positive that the mound is archaic, at least as old as the dog, if not older.
And to those that don't know what archaic means, what that represents?
2,500 years BC. So in other words, 4,500 years ago is at least as old as the mound. And the mound had to be complete before then in order for the dog to be buried in the top of the mound.
And do you think when the dog was buried on the top of the mound, they knew that there was a mound where they were digging to bury the dog?
Well, yeah, it's a 100-foot high structure that was.
But they could just think it's a hill.
No. If you saw it firsthand, you would understand that it was built.
Yeah, I mean, it's very obviously built. It stands up.
Archaic, the definition for archaic is typically 8,000 BC up to 1,000 BC. This would be right in the middle of our copper industry, by the way.
Yes.
And I'm just fascinated by the idea of
I mean,
burying a dog in the top of the building.
Well, this is what the mound looks like. I mean, it's literally, it was 100 feet tall. Its base is 22 acres. It's 22,365,000 cubic feet of earth, and it's on a floodplain. So there's no way it could be mistaken as a hill. I mean, it's.
And it used to be taller. It's 105 feet now, but it used to be over 125 according to most of the accounts.
Wow.
Yeah, and it has suffered slumping and erosion over the years, but this archaic.
A lot of it hold off for fill too.
Yeah, that's right. When they dug it up with backhoes in 2007, they hauled off 30,000 cubic feet and dumped it in piles just down the road. They literally dumped it in dump trucks and just poured it in piles. And they posted a sign saying, "Do not look for artifacts in these piles."
Why?
Because I was looking for artifacts.
No. Why did they take pieces of the mound and dump it down the road?
No, because, well, they claim to be trying to fix the slumping issue.
Horseshit. They dug into a mound with a fucking tractor and they dumped it down the road?
Yeah.
They called it an archaeological repair.
Yeah, they claimed that this was a repair effort to try to fix the mound
What they
slumping.
never and still don't, what they still don't understand is it was supposed to hold water. That was its intention. That's why
Right.
it was built where it was built. So they tried to drain it all out.
That's the most retarded thing I've ever heard, next to, Walmart intentionally leveling mounds to build it. I just taking a backhoe to a mound because we want to.
Well, it's abusive. I mean, it's completely abusive and untenable for preservation. And also, it's not even recommended by the geologists and geophysicists that looked at the site. There were 3 geologists that looked at the site prior to this, and they recommended not doing that and instead putting trees or some kind of slope stabilization method other than digging it. And
Who was in charge of this digging?
it was the site management. I mean, the Illinois State hired two guys to manage the site, and they did this. They didn't have any archaeologists on the site during the digging, and they just tore it apart with backhoes. So the
Okay,
mound
so
itself,
somebody needed some funding, and they needed to get some artifacts out, and they needed a reason to do it. And yeah, okay, cool. I understand now. Thank
I
you.
hope that doesn't happen with the site that we are trying to protect in Madison, because they want to go there with tractors and make a kindergarten park, like with swings and springs and
oh my gosh.
yeah. So it's oh well, you didn't receive the email. I BCC'd you, but you didn't receive it because your email is not working. You said to me, right? Your
Oh, I'll try to get
Yeah,
that.
the email to the mayor. You heard anything back?
two answers, but it's just apologizing for not being at work, but they will give their attention when they arrive.
You got the
Okay,
automated
so-
vacation reply. Great.
Key takeaway.
Well, I informed everybody. So in accordance
holiday weekend.
to Beth Solis that told me who were the people that could help or should know about what's going on, and I send it to everybody. So it's about 23 emails in one. I'm emailing about 23 people on the city. How do you call it? City hall, city mayor. I don't know how you call it, but there alone, I think it's about 12 to 14 people. So every department, I'm and sending the
Every department
report.
has been duly informed.
Yeah,
Got it.
and physical letters sent by me while still in Madison to the mayor himself. So they can't say they didn't get it because they did get it.
Right.
And Beth Solis also presented them the case, so they know exactly what they're doing. And they already, on that same sacred area of burials, they both build a railroad for trains. Is that how we say it?
Railroad. Yep.
Yeah. And they use tractors to dig it up to make the buildings, and they were taking bones out and just putting onto a pile. They just didn't care. So that
Yeah,
happened
they
like
don't.
30, 40 years ago. They couldn't care less. So
They don't care, man. They really don't, Ricardo. I mean, all around here, dude. Listen, here's the funny thing. There's a neighbor. There's. It's even hard to say it, man. It's ludicrous. There's a neighborhood, right? Pecan Ridge. It's right over there by Piaccia, where that's located, which is golf course. But they had to stop construction, and they didn't do it until like the last like 4 lots in the back, right? Because of finding native burials, right? Now they've been finding them the whole time. What is somehow word got out. But now the strange thing is knowing that fact, right, and being able to go there and look at where they had to stop because there was native burials. You can look all around, like literally behind, not even 20 yards on either side, and you can see new neighborhoods just flying up. I mean, they literally do not give a shit. That's blanket truth, man. Money, dude, money. They don't care about history. They don't care about past. They don't care about what's sacred. They care about money. And in these little towns, you better believe it is just like it is in Washington, D.C., man. Money talks and bullshit history walks because we can build our stuff, dig it up, and go sell it on the black market and make a bunch of money.
yeah, but
Good luck with your letter.
I bet that if we find some crazy natives and offer them a couple of diggers and send them to Christian cemeteries, then people would notice that they are digging up bodies out. Then there were people that would be cause riots and confusion. And that's exactly the same thing. There's just no boundaries about.
That's it.
So,
Let's just go plow over the local cemetery because I want to put in a flea market.
yeah.
Well, there's a cemetery, or there used to be a cemetery, start over, in Louisville associated with the big sanitarium down there. I can't remember the name of it. It's supposed to be the most haunted place in the continent. Anyway, there used to be 2 cemeteries on the property. One of them was Mason's only. It got plowed up, and a cell tower is now there. Yeah, some of the stones were 18 feet tall. Yeah, I know that because I can look at the angles and length of the shadows on Google Earth and stuff. So it's not just native cemeteries. It's cemeteries that nobody's paying
Attention to, exactly. Well, natives is easier because there's no information, there's nothing written, there's nothing there.
There's no stone markers, so to speak.
Well, that there's marker trees.
There are markers. Yes, there are many markers, not just trees, but there are also stone markers, and they're usually laid out in some cases, like for instance, what they call the Slack Farm, which is the place and the incident that caused NAGPRA. They were laid out in rows, and the people who scavenged the grave did so just by knocking the top off with a bulldozer. They knew exactly where to make the passage. In rows, perfect rows, straight, just like we do it.
Well, in Powers Bluff, this couple told the archaeologist, well, we have marker trees here. They are showing what it is. And the guy said, no, there's no marker trees in Wisconsin. That's just a natural tree. Yeah, but if there was 1, 2, or 3, or 4, I would agree. There are 150 trees with 90-degree angles on their branches. 150, okay? And the guy still said they don't exist. So, and this is just 90-degree angles. There's many more types of marker trees in there. So, well, what can one say? It's just, it is what it is. So, Vince, do you have more, or should we pass to Rick?
What I'm showing here is the hypothesis that there was a treasure fleet from the Ming Dynasty that came from Nanjing and went to Cahokia Mounds, and this was first published. This route synthesizes the evidence and the route that shows the case for this treasure fleet, and Laurie Bonner Nicholas translated this into English, and it was a Chinese document initially. And so what it shows here is the route that they described in the journals. And so they went from China around the Indian Ocean to Mecca and Medina, and then to Aden or Po at Venice.
How dare you to present such lies? Everybody knows the Portuguese were the first to cross the Cape of Good Hope.
Well, this was in 1430. The treasure fleet. They went from here, and then they went, I guess, back around. Yeah, it's evidence from the journals of the Ming treasure fleet, and they landed in the Canadian Maritimes, and then from that point, they went inland along the St. Lawrence River, across the Niagara Falls, to inland waters, and overland to Cahokia, which was Fangtu, the Yama kingdom, the country ruled by the sun spirit, the reflection of the heavenly market enclosure. So this was their depiction of what Cahokia looked like. And the reason why they identified it as Cahokia is because all the things that happened at Cahokia were identified in the journal, in the chronicles.
Are the worm cocoons, the silkworm cocoons from here?
Yeah, silkworm cocoons, there's evidence of that as well. I mean, we know that from the effigies that were found at the Cahokia site that shows silkworms. and the cocoons, like we talked about at the museum locally. So yeah,
Well, there were also the river pearls and a whole bunch of the plants that were used medicinally by the natives, other things in this journal, travelogue, if you will, of King Seas. So there's a whole bunch of contextual evidence that archaeology is ignoring.
Well, this is completely denied as fiction. The Chinese coming to America, that would be a scandal. They arrive first, and the first Americans that will become Americans, it could not be. So
Yeah, but see, even they were latecomers. Now we know this, but we're
Yeah.
still going with the whole Christopher Columbus bull crap.
yeah, you even have a Columbus Day now.
Again, yeah. I learned Explorers Day.
Which I never understood very well, because apparently he never saw America, so he never got there. So
Well, I remember that. Yeah. And when he did, he was an asshole.
when he did what?
He was an asshole. Killed people, tortured people, enslaved people, coerced people.
And they even documented it. So
Yes, bragged about it. In fact.
they were doing the Lord's good work.
So next, I have this article from Gordon Freeman. He found this rock called the Kikip Sacred Rock, and he reported about it. Apparently, it was first recorded by Le Hero, this guy by the name of Le Hero, in 1882, and it was on a hill out in Alberta, and this rock on the hill was a sacrificial stone of the Blackfeet Indians. And so this article talks about the symbolism of the stone, and that it was associated with the Morning Star legend. He believes it's over 5,000 years old.
Ooh.
And so he did a really interesting report here about the source of the legends and the story behind it. The 1886 article was identified. It says was high reliability because it documented the facts about it. Everything in his article and description was really highly reliable information. And so he talked about the sacrifice, the blood sacrifice and Morning Star associated with the stone, and showed how it would actually work. The stone had a hole drilled through the side. This is a kind of simplified layout. So it has a crescent moon groove at the top, nested cups, and the star cup in a second top cup. Then the simplified view would be there was cups on the bottom, and when they did a sacrifice, it would flow out of the underside of the rock. So the blood would flow through the holes down into the bottom of the rock and then drip onto the underside of the rock, representing the vulva or mouth, I guess, of exporting or dropping blood onto the earth through
So
this.
it had a similar design to the so-called sacrificial rock at American Stonehenge,
Yeah, that's right.
except that it had a groove around that place.
Yeah, it's an altar stone. Its ritual use was for altar, and they had attributed to Morning Star. The dating, the chronology is amazing to think of. That this was at least 4,500 years ago. He argues it's 5,000 years old. And so the goal next is to obtain the museum object and to preserve it. These are some recommendations of things that could be done.
And how was this report received?
Gordon Freeman sent it to me in the mail.
No, I mean by the academia.
Oh, well, Gordon Freeman presented it in 2008 at in France at the archaeological community meeting, and he said he didn't get a lot of comments back about it.
See, Jason, you did much better when you did your presentation. You got a lot of comments back at you.
Yeah, that's for
You didn't get a lot of comments.
sure. How'd they take it?
I don't know.
They didn't say.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess the next one I have is the water panther. Peshu. The water panther shown here is a petroglyph, Lake Superior. We were talking about the boat symbolism last week. That this could represent a boat, or like you mentioned, possibly the dog sacrifice that they mentioned. But the pictorial description here, that the Gawa rock is representing the Great Lynx. And here's another picture of it.
Well, that looks like a spiny-horned beast.
Yeah, that
On a
one is
snake.
quite famous. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing about water spirits is that they are half-half. They're half mischievous and half good. It just depends on the occasion.
We are approaching our, we're over our 1 hour mark, and I think, do we still have 2 presentations on tap tonight? Rick?
It's weird.
Okay, so
Okay, cool.
Vince, just FYI, if you want to,
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
Remember where you are, Vince, and you'll continue from there. Because one
Okay.
thing about Vince's presentations is that they are so complete that we need hours and hours to see them all.
Well, just to let me set this up for a moment, I did this presentation at AAPS in, I believe it was 2009, maybe 2010. But the article that talks about in this presentation, it was in Ancient America in 2000, I believe it was 2008. So that's the setup. And the article was about stone forts, one in particular at Devil's Backbone across from Louisville. Let me see if I can get this going. And, are we on there yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
The testing went super well.
Yeah, sure did. Entire screen. Yeah, here we go. We'll do it this way.
There we go.
Here. All right. We're almost on par with this. So this is the presentation that I did for AAPS once upon a time. And this represents, be careful what you wish for when you tell everybody who reads this magazine to look out for these keywords around prophecies that they know real well. You can see that it was volume 11, number 71, way back when.
Rick,
So-
do you mind tapping the maximize button as you continue on your
Sure.
window? Thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
All right, we can even do a little better than that.
Yes, sir. Thank
So-
you.
So I don't know when this was. I believe it was 2008 or so, and it became an issue for Jim Michaels because I contemplated the 1170 date for the possibility that, Prince Medic was in Indiana back then. So Jim Michael took me to task on that, but this part is correct. In 1870, the Indiana State Geologist E.C. Cox, Edward C. Cox, recorded a survey report on this site, and this image is his and Borden's drawing of it. It's not entirely accurate if you're looking at Google Earth, but it's not bad considering.
And how high were these walls?
Well, the one in the upper left here, right along this one right here, is 75 feet tall. Man-made wall, 75 feet tall.
75. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a fort.
That is a fort. And this area here where where you can see the mounds on top of what appears to be a wall, it is a wall.
Yeah.
It's 25 feet wide on this area, about 12 feet tall, and it's about 580 feet from this area above the word map to this area up here on the upper left-hand corner, below the north area, north barrel. So it was a vast undertaking, and it wasn't all stone. It was actually earth that was clad in limestone slabs, 20 feet by 10 or 12 feet by a foot thick. Now, I'm not going to even speculate on how they moved them. But this place was documented. It's definitely a fortress. It's nothing ceremonial, no. That just did not happen. And if you look right up here where the first R in river is on the Ohio River, that little notch there, that is an ancient quarry where they actually quarried out limestone from the top of this bluff. And none of those pieces were the size of what they found at the bottom wall, nor is there any indication of where all that stone went. They're quarried out apparently quite carefully, according to Cox. So this place really existed, and it really was a defensive work of some kind. And it had, oversight where you could see roughly 20 miles of the Ohio River in anything except a real heavy fog or downpour. And it had the height above the Ohio River to take, say, a quarter panic ballista of Roman design, and you can see it all the way across that river. Come back to that one at some point. Anyway, I published this article saying that there were these ancient fortresses, one at Devil's Backbone, the other one at Miram, and they had these features in common. These features here. They had these features in common, except for maybe well. And it was all based on the idea that when I was a teenager, there were two different old codgers in my town that told me about this line of fortresses that went all the way across Indiana, 10 or 12 of them in a row. So this guy in the blue shirt here, he wrote back to Ancient America and said, "Hey, I think I have what you're looking for." And I think he was right. So here's the site context, and the green line here is the fork of White River, which is why I call this red box the site the East Fork site. There's other images of the East Fork River that will blow your socks off. But anyway, so here's a larger context of where it is. So the red dot on the left is Miram Bluff. The red dot on the far right is Charlestown or Devil's Backbone. And that red dot in the middle is the one that he wrote me about, which happens to be exactly on the line and almost exactly in the middle. Which is where I said be careful what you wish for, because that line of fortresses is very real. Since then, I have found two more directly on the line and a few more kind of almost hugging the line. One of them is right here between Salem and Borden. And by the way, the W.W. Borden, who signed the map of Devil's Backbone, this town is named for his mother. Anyway, there's another fortress right here between Borden and Salem. And it is on the Little Blue River. I'm sorry, it's on the Blue River, not the Little Blue River. And the road that is closest to it is called Fort Hill Road. And the church that is built adjacent to the property is called Fort Hill Church. Yeah, place names almost never lie.
And what is the orientation of this?
The orientation,
Of this line?
the line is running west northwest to south southeast, southeast east southeast.
But is it connected to any celestial event or not? It's just
Not that
a
I can tell.
okay.
However, both of the bigger dots are hubs for other straight lines going other places. We'll come back to that one. Just the idea that the guy wrote back and there it was. I had never put a ruler on there and tried to figure it out. Now I've got one here. I've got one right here, which is where I grew up, by the way. Looked at it every day growing up and didn't know it was an ancient fortress. That one didn't have stone walls, though. It had wooden parapets and palisades. I did have stones at the gate. And then there was another one over here on the other side of Sanborn. They're all on waterways of some kind or another. The Miram is on the Wabash River. And it's also in episode 5 of Lost America. Charlestown is in a different episode. Anyway,
Now available on Patreon, Lost America Patreon. So everybody wants to see it.
So this is a little finer context of what was found at the site. And there's stone walls. And the red line represents at least 3 different stone walls. I found actually 7 different stone wall segments. And the one lower center in this box, if you will, is the one that made your question. They're all apparently for water management. At least that's the way it looks. Now, you ask, what's the significance of that line? I can't tell you for sure that it relates to this, but the 10 o'clock line you see in this map from 1818 was a treaty line that was established, well, very shortly after Indiana became a state that was mostly still occupied by Indians. But it's almost parallel to the line we're talking about. And there are some other interesting issues with that. So curious features about these walls. There's a slot at the top you can kind of see right here. And this is all local sandstone, but some of the blocks weigh probably around 800 pounds. This tree that you see in the foreground left is at least 300 years old. And it's a white beech or silver beech. Kind of hard to tell the difference. And satellite view, the wall we were just looking at, and the tree we were just looking at is this top line right here. And then there's a cave just to the east of it. And the drainage is towards this wall. And then it shifted with the earthquake in 1812, and the drainage is now outside that walled off area. But over here, there's some excavated stone steps, and there's a second cave entrance down here, and it's a vertical. But there's another room in that cave that you can't get into because of rock fall, probably from the 1812 earthquake. I'd love to get in there and find out what else might be in it. So here's a terrain map of the area, and the red rectangle is the area in question on this spot. So you can see that it's a pretty high spot. The knob is higher than most of the things around it, meaning it's a terrain feature, a high terrain feature, and inside of other high terrain features within 10 miles or so.
Considering we are watching a PDF, do you think you can put the page as wide as the screen?
I
with zoom?
A little bigger, but
yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay, so anyway, the length of this wall segment is about 66 feet. And you can't see it in this shot, but you can see in another shot that the tree has grown into this opening, be it very old tree, has grown into an opening that was already existing when the tree started growing. So the wall is basically a straight line. It's approximately 10 foot thick at the base. Anyway, that's the stone wall. And yeah, it's a wall, but we don't know why. Possible purposes are erosion control, fortification, structural foundation, livestock enclosure, a bathhouse, a dam for a mill pond, or some or all of the above. I don't know why it's there. But if it is a mill pond, then there are some things you can kind of check on. If it's an overshot wheel, then the water would have to flow over the top, meaning that that knot in the middle would be where the sluice would go to downstream slightly to an overshot wheel.
So could this stone here been quarried from the fort?
Yes. Well, from the Devil's Backbone, probably not. No, this is all local stuff. It was all local to the middle of Indiana. But if it is a mill for processing, grist mill, stone cutter, you know, sawmill, whatever, it's not in a great place for that. It's up on top of the hill. Steep grade, high hill, few available resources real nearby, and poor place to transport for finished material. But in the earlier finish, I forgot to show you that there used to be a ferry just north of it across that river. However, if it's a water wheel, you can use a water wheel for a lot of different things, undershot or overshot. You can use it, you know, like I said, it's a grist mill, a sawmill, stone cutter mill, hammer mill, all these things. But the more interesting thing I found in this research is all this series of stuff on the right-hand side, which is dewatering water wheels. In other words, dewatering mines. You would have humans walking inside these wheels to lift water from deep in the mines to the surface and let it drain off. And this is drawn from an ancient dewatering setup in Spain at Rio Tinto.
Rio Tinto, yeah.
Yeah, you know the place. That had been a Carthaginian mine, then it was a Roman mine, and then in 1901 it became a British-owned mine, and now I think it's shut down again. But it was mined off and on for 7,000 years.
Yeah.
The Romans figured out how to get the water out. And that's a side view of one of the wheels. Top.
Would it be big enough to put an ox in it, or do you think it's actually humans?
No, it was human. Well, you couldn't get the ox to climb ladders very well.
I see.
So you can still find this at Rio Tinto too.
Look at the color of that water.
So we don't know what it was doing. We don't know that it was a mill, but that so far is a pretty interesting thing. But if it was a mill, could it be taking that piece of what looks like an iron mineral and breaking it down like a hammer mill? Well, maybe. But if it's iron, we can test that. So I did that. I sent it to our friend, Scott Walter, at American Petrographic Services. And he tested it and sent this back. It's 95% quartz, 5 to 8% hematite. There's not a lot of iron in it. It wouldn't be a very good source. Could be done, but probably wasn't. So we'll just take that as it is. But I'm not giving up. There are other possibilities for using falling water. One of them is to lift cable cars, move cable cars, and moving water with water. Or maybe it was just no water at all. Maybe it was just a wall for something else. Maybe it was just a pond. So we have almost all of the words met, the key words, including that accepting wealth, unless 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 they're actually using gravity balance, and it could be well. Now gravity balance. Um, I think there's one in Portugal in the mountains by Lisbon, or there used
Yeah,
to be.
there used to be several. Now that one suffered an accident, like
Well,
last
earthquake
year.
got it, I think.
Sorry.
I think the earthquake disabled it, didn't it? I
Uh,
know that all that were operating in what 1510, all of those failed for the earthquake, but then the entire country almost failed for that one.
yeah, well, they came much later again, and so the one that had the accident now on the Rua de Santa Justa
Oh
was,
yeah, cable broke or something.
yeah, so probably that one was about 150 years more or less, but they've been using them. So
So
and
they
the
used the weight
earthquake that
of
you're
that.
describing is 1755,
Yeah. So this,
9.6 on the scale of Richter.
yeah, and it knocked everything over. But so this one, what you see here, is actually in Lincoln in Wales, and it's moving a lot of stuff, a lot of weight, and has for a very long time. The water balance is used to move loads uphill using, of course, water weight to balance these two cabled together boxes. There's a pretty good shot of one. There's one like this in Bergen, Norway, too, up to the state park.
It's a leap of faith because most of these elevators are very old, and the incline is absolutely unbelievable. So
Like you are, it's a conscious effort to not become anxious. So speculative hypotheses would include, first of all, this place, these stone walls are truly ancient, that it is a fortress, that it could have been a water balanced table tram, could have been multi-purpose, it could have been Euro, could have been Middle Eastern, or it could have been Native, right? Because they were innovative people. So the next step would be to dig into that cave and see if there's anything in it, um, and a few other things to look for. None of these things that I know, as far as I know, none of these things have been found on this property. Not even a single arrow.
well, I can say with total confidence that, for instance, steam power was known from antiquity, but they used it
Oh,
for trivial things. At least they only found trivial uses for it, but they were completely aware of its mechanics. But if they are not using it, as many times happens in history, if they are not using something that we find today to be more efficient to us, it's because probably they were even better with water instead of steam, right? So what you're
yeah,
describing is the use of water, which I think it was being used as far back as we can imagine in
right.
terms of civilization.
So, so a little bit of follow up on the site. I've taken a number of people there to get their opinion, including Wayne May and Jim Church. And Wayne's like me; he doesn't know what to think of it. Jim thinks it may have been, particularly the pool area we were looking at. It could have been exactly that. It could have been a bathing area, for mineral water, because that water has a little bit of mineral content in it. Um, I'm open to ideas. Anybody listening or watching?
So one of the questions, because I don't know if you said it, if you did, I didn't understood it. Is there any cavity on the earth there they could be mining stuff up, or is just on the surface?
There's no. I have found no evidence of mine tailings or such that would indicate that they were taking stuff out of the ground. That's the only the iron piece or the iron hematite sample I got is from right there by that pool. Because that rock is, well, the size of this motorhome.
Okay. Did the top of the hill had some significance that would lead them to create that kind of machinery or engineering?
I didn't find any evidence of that. But the top of that hill is visible from many hills around it up to 10 miles away.
Because if you think today, we put those cables to people just go to the top of the hill. It's not because there is some industry there, it's just to go to the top of the hill.
Exactly. And that's a possibility for what this is. With or without an actual industrial product or some commercial product either. But maybe just get themselves up and down. But if it were, for instance, just wide speculation here, if, for instance, there were a signal station on top of that hill, then maybe just getting fuel to the top of the hill would have been an undertaking.
And do you think that that might be just the remains of something used to put something on top of the hill that is no longer there?
It could be that, or it could be as simple as a public bath.
Sure. I was just wondering if they needed to put a big reflective something on top of the hill or some long distance communication device that was big.
Yeah, I don't think they use big stuff like that. I think they use palm-sized stuff.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it could just be for tourism, basically.
Well, yeah, it could have been. But that's what I think about a lot of the commodities we inspect that could have been on ocean-going vessels.
Any input, Vince or Jason?
I'm loving this picture. I mean, this has been perfect for me here at the end. I mean, I think it's a great hypothesis, man. I love it. It's extremely, I mean, it's inventive, the whole idea of the system. It's something that I have never considered, but probably should have with some of the things I've seen. You know,
I have seen so many, I'll just say this, I have seen so many dopey concepts of how they raised stones for the Great Pyramid, then this would be just fine.
Right. Similar weighted object.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe James Shears has lots of articles on ancient America. So if you look, you'll find lots of them.
Yeah, I'm gonna ponder this. This is excellent. I mean, as you say, it's just so simple. It's so simple. Counterweight.
And so the exploration of are there more places along this line of peninsular fortresses is what led me to, if it were a military endeavor and they were trying to maintain signals 10 miles or so apart is about the optimum range. It's also optimum for a one-day travel for light infantry, et cetera, et cetera. So when I start adding them up and looking for the additional sites that I'm now convinced are there, I start looking in that range of distance along that line. Yeah, they're everywhere. Wow. You did that really quick, dude.
How about that? This is what I mean. AI has the ability to make these in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I think I spent a week putting that presentation together back in the day. I can't hear you, Jake. Yeah.
So I guess the ancient fort here, do they know, have they done any testing on it to determine age or culture? I guess, is it associated with the Welsh?
No, they have done no such testing. There have been a few items brought out. There was a stone box grave on the site. I don't know what testing was done on it, but as a general rule, we know that's about 600 AD up to about 1100. And stone box graves are all over that area. They're all over the Ohio Valley, out to the Mississippi and beyond, for that matter. But that's a common burial technique or practice within ancient Wales of the same time period and North America of that area in that time period. Also interesting, both places around 800 AD. I'm sorry, before about 800 AD, there were never any artifacts in those boxes with those bodies. After about 800, they started having bits of pottery and ornamentation and jewelry and whatnot. But the practices of both the burial structures as well as the grave goods were virtually identical between Wales and the Ohio Valley. Not saying that it was Welsh people in the Ohio Valley or anything, but
So if let's say, as we're seeing in here in this presentation, if they were moving water uphill with the power of water, what was the water for on top of the hill?
I don't think they were moving water uphill. I think they were using the water flowing out of the cave to move something else uphill, assuming that that's water flow. So what was they moving uphill? I don't know. Probably could have been fuel for the signal flares. Could have been food for an infantry emplacement. Could have been any number of things. There are other stone formations that are not natural, stacks of stone that don't seem to serve any function other than there are stones stacked on top of one another. But the wall segments we found, like I said, about 7 separate wall segments on the property. Some of them are very clearly intended as erosion control, and I'll have to say failed erosion control in a couple cases. But it's bizarre. This was something, and nobody outside of our circles cared. There's a story here if we can figure it out.
Well, either they don't have enough archaeologists or they are all very busy.
Well, there's stories all over America. I mean, this is the thing, as he's presenting here quite well. There is so much still to find, still to understand, still to grasp. We have the illusion of completeness is presented to us by the mainly academic narrative, and we all sort of, whatever, by default operate under that. Do what?
So-called settled science.
There you go. There you go. Settled. When in fact we simply do not. And all one has to do, just as Rick has demonstrated here, as I try to demonstrate myself, and I learned the same way. You get out here in it. And you get out here in it, and you start to realize there is just so much than is in the books, than people who read what's in the books by the few people that went to the few sites that were documented and found, and they present that to you as a complete picture when it is so very far from complete, y'all. There's so much left to go.
Right. There is. So the Devil's Backbone site, we've talked about it a lot, but in 1894, when the Big Four Railroad came in, they destroyed or stole all the stone that made up that bottom wall. That 580 by 20 by 12 wall is gone. Every bit of the stone, as well as a whole bunch of others. And they used it to build a bridge across the Ohio River at Jeffersonville into Louisville. And that railroad came right by well, basically 11 miles east of here in Bedford, Indiana, which is called the limestone capital of the world. They didn't need to go to Devil's Backbone to get all the stone and rubble that they wanted. Just throw it in the hopper cars and take it. But they didn't. They went and deliberately destroyed an ancient site at the behest of one Major John Wesley Powell. It wasn't to build a bridge, it was to destroy the site.
As unfortunately happened so many times.
Yes. And yet Powell's a hero.
Yeah.
Well, what I've got on the screen here, if I could show, this is the Spiro Mound and Mount Pisgah description. And so I started in looking at the Mount Pisgah arrangement in the Twin Earth Lodge. And so that's what's on the right side. And then on the left side is Spiro Mound. So the interesting thing is that how they correlate, that they're both Earth Lodges, they're at the same latitude, they have this ancestor shrine. Essentially, they were recreating the creation of the world in making this mound.
Can you zoom in, Vince?
Yeah. And it's really a symbolic creation of the world that was a part.
It looks very Indian to me. From India. The stepped.
Well, it's an AI rendering.
Yeah, it's an AI creation. I mean, but the idea is how the Soto described it as 7 layers high of in the DeSoto Chronicles. He said it's 7 layers high of these ancestor shrine boxes. Dodomag is basically stacked 7 layers high, and well, in Spiro Mound, it was the same thing. They had 7 layers, 7 boxes laid out in the room that were 7 high. They're stacked 7 high, and a lot of the symbolism correlates. They had these square boxes filled with dodomag or dotems, clothing. Sometimes what they wore was like their costumes as that animal, like a bear costume or a deer costume. They would put these in the boxes, and each one then was stacked up, and they represented their clan symbol.
Do we know what is the meaning or significance of 7 to these indigenous peoples?
Well, 7, I mean, it's the number of layers that they stacked this. Let me show another slide that kind of helps. I mean,
Well, it was 7 for a lot of things. There were 7 sacred directions, 7 colors representing 7 sacred directions, representing 7 moods with colors. It's 7 everything.
right. 7 was a sacred number across the board. And I mean, it has been in many cultures. So this one here shows another depiction of what it would have been like in Mount Pisgah. And so in the Earth Lodge, they found 28 wampum belts that would indicate their clan symbols. The colorful clay and all the different directions were represented, and the clans were all in those boxes in the middle of the Earth Lodge.
Very cool.
Well, I know it's an AI representation, but if you have 7 levels, there's not that many ways you can represent 7 levels. So it will always look something like this.
Right.
And this,
Conical, pyramidal.
yeah. And
But
this,
I want to go back to a specific item that was found. I believe not listed. It listed it as a hyacinth type blue stone. I don't know what a hyacinth type stone is, but and it came just after Ricardo said it looked Indian. and I'm thinking lapis lazuli. But I could be wrong. We don't even know where that stone is. I think it's probably sapphire myself. South Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina. There are sapphires there.
Unpolished, you mean, in raw?
Yeah, yeah, it's a natural stone. Not a common stone, but it's a natural stone found there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what this is supposed to represent. The blue stone. It was a big stone. They said it was 7 inches long, the length of your thumb to your forefinger in width or diameter. So it would have been a big blue sapphire, and they described it as a hyacinth. And they also found emeralds. They found pearls. There was chilcat beads, mica, and shark's teeth. But yeah, that blue hyacinth was described in the DeSoto Chronicles.
Okay,
It's
so
amazing.
how far back can we polish such a stone to that state?
Well, I don't know how polished it was or not, but I mean, it was found in the mound and described. And I mean, I think it represents the world. I mean, it's a big round
yeah,
blue
it was
stone.
probably a rock stone, not cut or polished.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't remember seeing that in the description. Anyway, that it was a finished work.
Right. It didn't say if it was worked or cut. It was just they described it as a hyacinth. And hyacinth is a sapphire.
Right, a jewel, so to speak.
Yeah, because I've seen these kind of pieces in raw, and I would think it was a rock, because they don't look that valuable at
It
all.
is rock. It is rock.
Yeah. But the amazing thing is about the connection to that I've heard the Tuscarora in around 1500, they migrated from New York to North Carolina. And this was right around the time of Hiawatha, the Five Nations, the Peacemaker. The Tuscarora were in the book of the migration of the Iroquois. They document a migration that goes to the North Carolina area near Mount Pisgah, and it was called Morning Star. The village of Morning Star was named after that, and it's right nearby Mount Pisgah. And so that's possibly where this originated from. And all these wampum belts, those are an Iroquois or Haindase Onondaga technique or custom to make the wampum belts. And so the fact that they found 28 of them in this mound, and those are now repatriated. I mean, it's amazing that they date back at least to 1500. And the story goes that DeSoto, when he came there, they just desecrated it. I mean, they literally burnt it internally. They burnt it down. They took all the pearls. They started unwrapping these boxes and took them out of the mound, and then they just destroyed it.
And how did the wampum belt survive?
Well, I guess they excavated them by the University of North Carolina in 1968, I think. So around 1968, they found all these wampum belts, and I guess when they burnt the building down, they must have fallen to the ground and somehow then were buried.
But they resisted the fire because it's highly inflammable. This belt are
Well, the wampum is made of shell.
a shell.
So
It is shell. Okay.
yeah, wampum is a shell material. It's made of quahog shell.
I thought it was fabric with shells on it. Okay.
It's
It's strung on some kind of cordage,
yeah,
and the cordage, nature of the cordage would determine how well it withstood fire.
And another wrong assumption that I had is that these wampum belts were passed on to the next generation. And in here, it seems that they were representatives of people that were buried there.
Well, but that wasn't a universal practice.
right. I mean, apparently they ended up in the mound, and they found 28 of them, and so I don't think they were meant to be burnt down. I mean, that was what that happened when DeSoto showed up. I think they would have been passed down from generation to generation as heirlooms. Of course,
Yeah, but in here they were on the walls, so to me, they represent the people that are buried there, or the people that is being honored there after death.
well, that's right, and I mean they described it as an ancestor shrine, and each of the walls were described as having depictions of the ancestors above each of the burials. So these may have been their wampum belts that represented their clans.
Well, I'm just sorry that De Soto didn't photograph or filmed it just before he destroyed it, because
I know.
We couldn't get Discovery sponsoring. I know the
So
feeling.
yeah, I mean, this is just an interpretation of what I think. I don't know for sure if they were wallpapered on the internal surfaces, but the way he described it was there were and woven mats all along the internal surfaces of the Earth Lodge. So that's why I put this on the wall, like because I think he was referring to the wampum belts, but he didn't know what to call them.
did he face any resistance on this site, or he found it abandoned?
No, it was a lot of resistance. I mean, there was this village of Kofitacheke. The lady of Kofitacheke was like a queen or princess, and
And they
she was,
said it was like 3,000 people lived in the city.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
a big city.
it's described. I mean, on account of the wonders found in the temple and burial place of the lords of Kofachekwe. It even gives the size here. It was thus our men stopped only a short till they came to the temple. It was large, being more than 100 paces long and 40 wide. The walls were high, in keeping with the size of the room, and the roof was very high, steeply pitched. For since they did not have the invention of tiles, it was necessary for them to build very steep roofs, so that the rain would not come into the house. The roof of this temple apparently was made of reeds and slender stalks of cane split in half lengthwise, from which these Indians make very nicely finished and well-woven mats, similar to the Moorish mats. By placing 4, 5, or 6 of these on top of each other, they make a roof that is beautiful within and without, and very effective, keeping out both sun and rain. On the roof of the temple there had been placed many shells of various marine animals, arranged according to their size, from large to small ones. It is not known how they came to be so far inland, though perhaps they also were found in the rivers flowing through the country, which they are. The shells were placed with the inner side on top because of its greater luster. Among them there were also many periwinkles, extraordinarily large. There were spaces between the shells and the periwinkles, for they were all arranged in regular order. In those spaces were large skeins made of strings and pearls and seed pearls, half a fathom long, that were spread out on the roof, descending gradually, one string beginning where another lets off. With the sun reflected on them, they made a beautiful sight. The temple was covered with all these things on the outside.
Well,
To go inside,
sorry, that would be very tempting for people looking for treasure, shiny things. It doesn't matter what it is.
all
Even the roof
on
was
the
shiny.
outside. That's why they guarded it. Look, so to go inside, let me jump to what they find right outside the door. All right, so to go inside, the Spaniards opened some large doors whose size was proportionate to the rest of the temple. Near the door were 12 giant figures carved from wood, such faithful imitations of life and with such a fierce and bold posture that the Castilians stayed to look at them for a long time without passing on, marveling to find in such a barbarous country works that if they had been in the most famous temples of Rome in the most flourishing periods of its power and empire, would have been esteemed and valued for their grandeur and perfection. The giants were placed as if to guard and oppose the entrance of those who might enter. There were 6 on one side of the door, 6 on the other, one after the other, descending gradually in size from the largest to the smallest. The first were 4 varas high, so that's 3 times 4, that's 12 feet high. The second somewhat less, and so on down to the last. They had weapons in their hands made in proportion to the size of their bodies. The first 2 on each side, which were the largest, each held clubs, the last quarter of which were embellished with diamond-shaped points and bands made of that copper already mentioned. They were so exactly like those clubs that are described as belonging to Hercules that it seemed that either might have been copied from the other. The giants held their clubs aloft with both hands, and with such a fierce and bold aspect, as if threatening to strike anyone who entered the door, that it did inspire terror. The second on the other side, this is what the order in which they all proceeded, had, check this, broadswords made of wood, in the same form that they make them in Spain, of iron and steel. The third had sticks different from the clubs that resembled the swinglets used to beat flax. And it goes on and on, describing all of the weapons that all of these wooden statues had as they were guarding this temple. That's before they even got inside. Then the others had bows. Yeah, now look, they get inside, man, and they say they find rooms or porticos, might be a better way to say it, where each of the weapons that each of these giant statues or descending sized statues held were then inside, like ceremonially piled up in each portico. I think the numbers, man, are something like 70. I mean, it's like tons of these weapons they found inside this place. Anyway, I didn't mean to keep going, but for those that aren't familiar, I mean, it's some pretty incredible descriptions.
Yeah, it looks like you're reading Lord of the Rings or something.
No, this is the DeSoto Chronicles.
No, I mean what it was. The reality looks like.
Yeah, I know it is. It's just like, you're right, Ricardo. It is just like Lord of the Rings. It really is.
But in Lord of the Rings, as well as probably at Mount Pisgah, it represented something real to the people who made it.
Exactly.
Right.
So from giants of 12 feet down to what? Smaller humans?
Little people. All races.
Yeah. Right.
So they had go ahead. Sorry, guys. Go ahead.
All races, all levels of technology known to man at that time. As well as metalworking, obviously. They had copper. Man, did they have chemistry too? Oh wait, yes, they did.
All right, so we say they're butt flaps, right? Wearing natives. That's the sort of narrative. On the floor against the walls, on very well-made wooden benches, as was everything in that temple, were the chests that served as these sepulchres, as Vince mentioned, in which were the bodies of the chiefs who had been lords of that province of Copicheque, and of their sons and brothers and nephews, the sons of their brothers. No others were buried in that temple. The chests were well covered with their lids, exactly one vara above each chest, so a vara is roughly a meter, was a statue carved from wood against the wall on its pedestal. This statue was a portrait taken while living of the deceased man or woman who was in the chest at the age at which they died. The portrait served as a record and memorial of their ancestors. The statues of the men had weapons in their hands, but those of the children and women had nothing. The space on the walls between these portraits of the dead and of the statues on the upper part was covered with round and oblong shields, large and small, made of cane so strongly woven that they could turn a dart shot from a crossbow. Though a harquebus shot penetrated them more than did the dart. So see, they were firing their weapons at this shit. That is so
They're
sick.
testing.
Sick. The oblong and round shields were interwoven with strings of pearls and seed pearls, and around the edges they had borders of colored threads that embellished them greatly. On the floor of the temple lengthwise were placed on benches 3 rows of wooden chests, large and small, one on top of another. They were arranged in order so that the large ones came first, and on them other smaller ones, and then others still smaller. And in this manner 4, 5, or 6 chests were put one on top of another, rising from the largest to the smallest in the form of a pyramid. Between the various rows of chests were passages that went the length of the temple and crossed from one side to the other, by which one could walk all through the temple without any difficulty and see what was in each part of it. All the large and small chests were full of pearls and seed pearls. The pearls were separated from one another according to size. Can you? I mean, it's like being in the horde at Durin's horde,
Yeah.
you know, with all the gold. He has it
No,
broken down into sizes.
They hit jackpot when they found that place, at least in terms of pearls. And you're muted, Rick.
Many bundles of white deer skin.
Sorry,
And they were
on and
guided
on.
to it.
they what? Sorry.
They were guided to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
they were guided to it. Okay.
Around the temple were 8 rooms separated from one another and placed regularly and in order. Apparently, they were annexes of the temple for its embellishment and service. Wow. The governor and the other gentleman wanted to see what was in them, and found that they were full of arms, arranged in the manner that we shall tell. This is it. The first room they happened to see was full of pikes, there being nothing else in it. All were very long and very well made, with heads of brass, i.e. copper, I guess, which, because it was so highly colored, looked like gold. All were adorned with rings of pearls and seed pearls, having 3 or 4 turns placed at intervals along the pikes. Many were covered in the middle, where they would rest on the shoulder, and where the head jointed the shaft, with strips of colored deer skin, and along both the upper and lower edges of this strip were borders of vari-colored threads, with 3, 4, 5, or 6 rows of pearls, or these seed pearls that embellished them greatly. In the second room, only clubs, such as we said that the first giant figures had, were at the door of the temple, except that in those rooms, being arms that were among the Lord's equipment, were decorated with rings of pearls, seed pearls, and borders. Do you see this goes on for 7 more rooms? Another room, there was a third. Nothing but axes, like those we said the giants outside who had forthened the door of the temple. They had copper heads with a blade on one side and a diamond-shaped point on the other, 6 inches and a hand's breadth long, respectively. Many of them had flint heads fastened solidly to the handles with copper bands. These axes also had on their handles rings of pearls and seed pearls and borders and colored threads.
Okay, so answer me this. The shells might have come from the river, but can the pearls come from the river? They have to be from the sea. They can come from the river too? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, they've showed.
You're muted, Rick, so I can't hear you.
They showed DeSoto how they pulled these things out, and a lot of them he didn't take a lot of them, because oftentimes they would burn them, and so they would get black on the outside, because they would open mass amounts of mussels on the beaches. They would just burn these giant piles and pop them all open, and then go around and just plucking pearls out, man, left and right. But as Vince pointed out, and I mentioned in a video I made today out on the Coosa River, when you pick up the shells of these mussels, the layers of the pearl essence are the shell. So essentially, you could even make beads, right, out of these shells, and they would look like pearl.
Yeah, I've seen a paper talking how they made pearls out of shells.
Yeah, they call that mother of pearl. But there are also, the river pearls are not necessarily spherical. They can be really odd shapes. They can be odd colors. And there are several types of river pearls that are far more valuable, I always thought, than ocean-going pearls. Oysters don't make all that get a pearl sometimes.
And you know, the what you're seeing here are the wampum belts. They were made just like they described, with threads of color. They're purple and white, but they were made of seed pearls and beads that were purple from quahog. They probably didn't know they were quahog purple, but that's what the color looks like. And we know now that all these wampum belts were found there, and that matches the description really well. And they described a periwinkle color. Periwinkle is a purple shell as well. Earlier, periwinkle shell. So maybe they thought that was periwinkle, but in fact it was quahog, like describing the wampum.
Well, you also find that the dyes used for the threads or the fabric, they made purple fabric. They made a purple fabric that was as fine as any of the Phoenician dyes in the Mediterranean.
Yes.
And we have examples in the Smithsonian of dyed fabric that color from the Americans, and they won't let us test it.
That's right. And when they dug up Monk's Mound, it had purple pottery coming out of the dirt that was from the mound. So the purple color of the pottery, it looked a lot like Murex purple.
I find purple clay around here, no doubt. Yep.
Yeah, but the idea that they had the purple dye that is so similar, at least in color, and almost certainly in origin, to the Phoenician purple dye.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
It's the only that we know so far. So
yeah. And the Phoenicians, they extincted their sources of purple dye within the first couple hundred years. But they kept selling it for another 350 or 400.
how?
Yeah, where did they get it if they'd already killed all the snails?
But Ricardo, you remember when we first started talking about this, that I think you mentioned there was a clan symbol or cache of images found in New York that I think you had sent me an article or something about around the 1860 time frame or so. Do you recall that?
No, I can't remember at this moment.
I've been trying to track that down because I think you sent me some article saying, "Hey, what about this in New York?" And I think that might be another clan shrine like this.
I can look for it. If I send to you, I have it. Just
Okay,
need to
thank
look
you.
for it. And well, we are at 2 hours and 2, so
Thank you. That was
Presentations, everybody, and information as always as we start keep doing our own little parts, chipping away at bringing the truth of our past to us here in the present. And thank you very much, gentlemen, for as always delivering on that.
I will be absent next week, gentlemen. I'm sorry. Can't be
okay.
here on Friday.
Any news on Lost America?
We're gearing up for another filming tour here next month. That's about all the big news.
Okay. And I think, Jason, we found something that I would like very much to explore on The Shaman and the Philosopher. I think
Okay.
we're going to read a lot of De Soto and
Okay.
just comment on it, because I enjoyed very much what you read today.
Okay.
So I think we'll start from the beginning and let's look at all of that adventure. It'll take us a few episodes, but we can look at all of the adventure from beginning to end.
Let's do that Sunday. Is that tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay,
Can do
tomorrow.
that.
Okay.
And I'm going to the Spirit of Vincennes tomorrow, which is a Memorial Day weekend celebration. In this case, celebrating the Revolutionary War as fought at Vincennes, Indiana. Yeah, in my opinion, the single most important battle of the war.
Hey, Amy, listen, if we're going to read the De Soto Chronicles tomorrow, try to catch us because, I know you've got some stories that sort of overlap with De Soto there. And thanks for listening to us. Thank you.
So, Jason, take us off the air.
Okay, everybody, you know where to find us right here every Saturday night. Next week, I'll hopefully have some footage from Bottle Creek Mound site to show you guys. If you are an independent artist, researcher, activist, demonstrator, whatever it is you do, if you're out there trying to find some information that you believe is important to the whole, come find us at the Institute of Natural Philosophy because we would like to talk to you. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for your time, your knowledge, your efforts, your presentation. Ricardo, get some sleep. What is it, 4 a.m. in Portugal? I'm gonna be reading you to sleep tomorrow.
It's
That's
3:10.
That's why you want to do De Soto Chronicle readings. You want me to read you to sleep tomorrow.
Bye, all.
Bye, everybody.
All right, thank you very much. A very fond farewell to you all.